A trade war is as much about complex statistics as belligerent rhetoric. In its latest round, China has launched a defense on both fronts by laying out its case with an official white paper, while taking the moral high ground with calls for compromise with the United States and for open world trade. It will wage a trade war if it must, but would much prefer to make peace if and when cooler heads prevail in Washington. In briefings on the paper, Vice Minister of Commerce Wang Shouwen declared China was ready for talks, but not with a knife at its throat. It is telling that the white paper cites mostly American sources. Beijing is clearly trying to say, look at your own data before leveling accusations at us. Its publication came as a new round of tariffs kicked in against $200 billion of Chinese imports. In retaliation, China has imposed its own tariffs on $60 billion of American goods. Whether or not you buy U.S. President Donald Trump's argument that China has been taking advantage of the America for decades, Beijing has two unassailable arguments. First, both countries have benefited enormously from bilateral trade. Second, compromise is better than war. When Trump talks about the U.S. trade deficit with China, his focus is usually on goods produced, rather than services delivered and sales made by American subsidiaries in China. China's economy has been driven by manufacturing while America's focus is on services, especially in high-tech. That's why the U.S. is the biggest source of China's deficit in the trade in services. U.S. statistics show that American service exports to China grew from $13.14 billion in 2007 to $57.63 billion in 2017, representing roughly 20% of China's total deficit in services trade. China supports millions of American jobs, makes big profits for U.S. firms. There are about 68,000 U.S.-funded enterprises on the mainland, having invested over $83 billion, compared with $16.98 billion by Chinese enterprises in the U.S. Trade has supported U.S. growth and lowered inflation. A joint study by the U.S.-China Business Council and Oxford Economics indicated that, in 2015, exports to China and two-way investment contributed $216 billion to America's GDP, pushing the U.S. economic growth rate up by 1.2 percentage points. Cheaper Chinese goods reduced the U.S. Consumer Price Index by 1 to 1.5 percentage points. It is also estimated that U.S. exports to China and two-way investment supported 2.6 million American jobs in 2015. If China has not always played fair, it's not that America was harmed, but the Chinese have sometimes taken more than their fair share. If that is the narrative, then negotiation rather than war is the way forward. Economic nationalists like Trump want to make America a manufacturing powerhouse again. But long ago, the U.S. has collectively decided to become the world's greatest high-tech service, consumer-driven economy. That's not China's fault.